I'm so excited to have you all with me today. Everyone listening with Ford City, okay? Travis Greene, Denar, got Titus on here. And Denar, it's good to put a face to the name,
Yes,
okay?
ma'am.
Because you
Yes,
took us to
ma'am.
church on Tent Revival. Now I get to see what you look like and all that kind of good stuff. So thank you all for being here with me today. How y'all doing?
Excited, man. First of all, thanks for having us. Much love for you, Sharona. Much love for Huntsville. I love Alabama. I'm a Georgia boy, so we first
Yeah.
cousins with Alabama.
First
Uh,
cousin.
First cousins with Alabama. So, thanks for having us, man. We're honored to be here.
And today's a big day.
Hey!
Yay! Come on, come on, come on. It's something exciting about when you've worked on something.
Oh, damn.
Even if you've done the recording, but you do so much behind the scenes, you're, editing and doing all that kind of stuff and getting branding together, taking pictures, all these things that you believe in, right? That the public has not been able to consume. And then the day comes where you're releasing it. It still works. It's a different type of work that y'all just
Yes.
entered into.
Yes.
But when you inspect the impossible, and now you're like, okay, now we're putting it out here.
Yes.
So tell me, how does it feel today? What are you excited about with this album release?
Well, I've done excuse me, I've done it quite a few times.
Right.
I've been around the block, so I'll let them speak on it. I'm the old man now.
Oh no, you're not old. You're not old. But it never gets old to me to see how first, because we sing these songs at our church for months before they come out to the world. Like we sing these
Yeah.
songs. This CD we've literally sung every Sunday since December. But to see these songs that impact the house and just tell the story of Forward City and to see like people in Africa and Asia and the UK singing these anthems, it never gets old to just to see God's plan in all of it. So I'm a kid in the candy store. Like I love it. I love it.
Yeah. What about you, Titus?
Yeah, like Denai said, if we sing the songs for it's easy to sing these songs for months and it's easy for them to get old to you if you're not careful. And so release day is a moment for people to just remind you of what it was like whenever you first heard it or whenever you first felt God visit you during, said song. So just seeing that over and over on social media, hearing it over and over again, it's making all this music brand new. So it's exciting all over again.
Yeah, I love that you said that because when I was listening to Tent Revival, even just earlier today, I was asking the question, why do we need to be revived so much? Like how do we maintain to the point like, and it happens in relationships and marriages, when you're raising kids, everything, it's always this, you need, the date night or you need the, to play with the kids. But I'm like, man, what happens that we need revival, because revival, in my experience growing up in churches, typically church folk that need the revival, right? And the other day, not to get too deep, but I was in a Sunday school lesson. They were talking about the woman at the well, but the disciples were going on assignment, right? So, but when they come back, she's changed the whole city.
Yeah.
All of them went. They didn't come back with 11 cities or 12 cities or a city.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And I said, man, how do we get this comfortable where
Yeah.
this one woman is just like, I can tell you this man who told me stuff that he should have been able to tell me. Changes the city. You walk with him every day.
Yeah.
And you just on assignment to go do what you got to do and come back.
Man.
Right. So
that's heavy.
When we're talking about revival and this process, because it's so real, what are some things that you do to keep your relationship fresh with God, to keep your love for even music and artistry fresh, and so that you can feel the message every time?
Man, that's such a great question, Sharona. Listen, you are the rock star of radio.
Yes.
For the day.
You're so good. I say we have a song on our latest project that we kind of wrote for Easter, but it's called I Remember. And I think that's how you keep the fire fresh. Is like, don't forget. Like the woman at the well, she said, come see a man who told me everything. She didn't have that time to be able for it to become a distant memory. It was like right then and there. If you remember, like when you first encountered him, there's the old hymn that say, take me back, to the place. And so I think when you remember that encounter and you remember how you found you, where you found you, a quote that a mentor told me before is that the greatest cure for ingratitude is loss. And unfortunately, sometimes you have to lose something or risk something for it to be like, oh snap, like let me be grateful for that. So I think keeping revival and staying fresh is keeping gratitude at the forefront of your mind, of remembering all that you have is because of him, and also recalling who he is and his character. And man, I anybody who knows me know my answer to everything is this right here. I keep it on me. It's my weapon. This is how you remember, man. I mean, I've been in the Gospels this week, and I encourage everybody in Alabama and abroad, like, man, get into the Gospels, like reread, because you don't remember as much as you remember. Like, there's so much that happened in like those 3 days that refresh you to a point of like, wait a minute now. Just remember who he is. Anyway, I can go on about that, but I think that helps.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Any of y'all have anything to add?
No, like he literally he said it all. And I was just thinking too, like, how do we get to the point? And you asked the question as humans, how do we get to the point where we need revival? But it reminded me of Israel. Like every so often they went around in circle and who the Lord was. And it's just a constant reminder, like PT said, to put the Lord first, you know. Like it's always the church that needs revival, because sometimes the church gets focused in the church and not the Lord anymore. And so, you know, it's always that constant reminder. It's like, no, like I'll be the wood, you be the fire. Like, no, I'll be that revival, you know. That's the that we need. So
his story never gets old, though. That's the beauty of it. You know what I mean? Even as you're talking about the woman of the well, John 4, something in me is like, you know, like I've heard it before, you know, but you hear it again and you see Moses, like Moses preached the same message. Like he preached a new message from the 10 Commandments. But after that, he was just redundant. It ain't like he came out with like no new profound revelation. He was just like, you know, in Deuteronomy, he's like, hey, remember how the Lord did this and that and that. And then remember the Red Sea, remember the 10 plagues, and remember the manna, and remember, you know, it's like there's so much power in, you know, his story. And it never, you know, the truth of the matter is it never gets old. It's fresh, it's alive. And so keeping this in your heart, what David said, man, I hide your word in my heart that I may not sin against you. I think when his word gets locked in your heart, he keeps the fire burning.
I love that. And I love that you all talk about having something, you know, your memory being almost a weapon is really what I hear, right? And what I think memorials are great. Like I always tell people, like, you know, remember that moment like you talked about, you know, if something great happens, I'm like, I need something from this moment, because it's like when they cross the Jordan, right? And he tells them, take a stone, right? And if you know anything about stones, like there are certain things that only grow in certain water, right? So the fact, I'm guessing that whatever stone they got from the bottom of the Jordan, you can't find anywhere else.
Preach, Sharona.
Water and all of this, right? Listen, y'all done got me excited on here.
Come on here.
No, but so when your kid sees it on the wall, it's like, I've never seen a rock like that. It's like, oh yeah, hold on, wait. Let me remind you of when we got that rock, right? So having those things around us that point to that time. That was just when you said that reminded me, like, okay, I need to make sure I have these memorials here set up so that something strange is in my house and someone says, what's that? Oh, that's the time God helped me cross a dry land over the sea, right? That is incredible. For the one that doesn't, and just being real, like the one that's not in the word, not because they don't like the Bible, but in a very real way, everyone's literacy level is in a different space. Okay. Like, you know, and it can be intimidating, not just reading the Bible, even hearing someone read it to you, you still like, I don't know what you're talking about. Right. What is the hope? Like, what do you say to that person that needs reviving, that's still working their way through maybe some literacy things to get to know God? How do they connect?
Titus?
I would tell them the step one, Sharona. By the way, it seems like you just like you're a part of the camp and you stay in our Bible study or something.
Listen, you know me over here. I'm like, what church is still a part of? Right. Forward City yet? Like, hey, you know, I'm over here like.
I'm absolutely going to answer your question, but I think the words "your memory is a weapon" might have been the words that initiated "I remember."
Wow.
if we can recall like the exact phrase. But to your question, I think step one is first of all, realizing that God is not a teacher. He's not your professor looking to grade you. And once you realize who he is, you can approach him differently. Understand that he's a father, and he desires to be found. He's not hiding from you. And then I think the step two is just getting in the community of a Bible believing church. Get around a church that teaches it correctly, because you can't understand it on your own. Like even what you just picked apart, the revelation you just found in the stones, if the first time you read that, you're not going to find that. And so somebody needs to go to church with Sharona. That would be the first thing I say. But no, to be serious, get into community with people that know it more than you.
Absolutely.
That is so good. Just God being a father. And you said something earlier, Travis, about, you said it and you just went on, but you said something about taking risks, right? And I was just talking to somebody and they were talking about how, we practice taking risks. That's one of my life values, to take a risk.
Yeah.
But it does, when you're in an uncomfortable place, that helps you to remember God's character, because you lean on him,
Yes.
in that way that you had to lean on. Oh, right. Oh my gosh, I can't fix this.
Yes.
In this process or in life right now, I think for each of you, you talk about expecting the unexpected. You talk about this tent revival. What are areas that you are having to be reminded of God's character in to push through, even though you know what I mean? But like, how are you processing whatever area that is right now?
Yeah, I think, I used to say that faith is risky. And a part of me believes that like, man, like, yo, it's risky, like it's risky to walk on water. It's risky to, to be trusting him to roll a stone away, and your brother in there, been in there for 4 days. And Martha's like, hey, it's gonna stink when you open that up. So she's thinking about her family and their image, and he's like, yeah, I already know it's gonna smell. But those things are risky. It's risky to fight through a crowd and touch the hem of his garment, right? Faith is risky. And I thought that for a long time, until I learned that I was right and wrong. It's not it's not that faith is risky. It's that the alternative is risky. The real risk is not her not getting healed. The real risk is her not taking a chance and touching his hem. The real risk is not the odor, is Lazarus not having a second wind. So the real risk in life is not the water walking, it's the disciples who didn't get out the boat. And so for me, where I'm at in life is like just reevaluating what I call a risk. Like it's not about what I can lose, it's about what I'm leaving on the table. Like, and so for me, I've lived and I'm constantly reminding myself of this. I've kind of approached ministry like, man, I know the minimum would get done, but I'm not afraid. Like, I'm not afraid of hell. I'm afraid of not maximizing. And so for me, it'll be heartbreaking to be at the gates and Jesus like, I mean, you're gonna get in, my blood covered you, but you got 100,000 that you would say, but you was anointed for 10 million. But you were too stuck up in your own head. You were too stuck up in your own will. You were too stuck up in pride to actually fulfill and maximize the assignment. I gave you the tools. I made the investment for you to do much more than you did. To me, that's the risk, not necessarily hell. So I don't know if that answers at all your question, because you asked a very practical question. But but for me, that's just my philosophy of how I approach life and ministry.
Yeah, Denai?
Man, I don't know. I'm sitting here as you were talking, like just going over my life, and I guess you were saying some of the times that we need to be reminded of God's character. Just honestly, like I've been in a space where I've been like very aware of myself. I've been aware of my defaults. I've been aware of my issues. I've been aware of my little idiosyncrasies and everything like that. And sometimes when you get in those spaces, you allow those things to overshadow God's truth. And so instead of like, I'm this and I'm that, you begin to label yourself as being this. And then you have to remind yourself that God's character says the opposite, like God, that may be a thing, but God speaks a better truth over you. And so in that mindset, I'm having to remind myself, not of who I am, but who God says I am,
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be chewing on this a little later. And Titus?
Yeah, I think kind of before Pastor Travis spoke, I was gonna say I'm probably the newest member of the group. The most recent way that I've taken a risk and trusted God was my wife and I and our little boy moving here from Chicago. Pastor Travis sent me a one-line text and it said, "When are you moving?" It wasn't, "Hey man, I was thinking about," it wasn't a long phrase. It was just asking me to move. And that that was like the beginning of a conversation that led to us moving here in November. And so that was an area for us to trust God, being away from family, but also just trusting that God could put us in a community and put us where we belong. And I believe that did happen, which would change my answer. Now I would agree with Pastor Travis. It's risky not to trust him. One of the things that he says all the time that got into my system is he's like, "I don't want to guess. I just would rather not guess. I want to I would rather make a decision based on faith, knowing that God is pushing me in this direction rather than guessing. Like I don't want to do it on my own." And so in trusting my logic and trusting my own finance, those things look concrete, but that's actually guessing whenever you learn the character of God. And so like now I'm learning my own rhythms, like Dinar said, and I can feel when I'm exercising my faith, knowing that, oh, this one isn't up to me. Yeah. And that's becoming the safe place for me, if that makes sense.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. And I know we don't have a lot of time. I do want to ask another question as far as, we talk about exercising faith, or I say building that muscle, right? So there are even games I play with. I have a 3-year-old to increase his imagination, right? There was a season in my life where I drew an animal. I made up an animal every day, right? Wow. So that I could think of something that doesn't exist. Wow. Right. Let me think of an animal that doesn't exist and I draw a picture, and I'm not even a great artist. But the idea was to stretch my ability to think of something that isn't here so that when real life comes and it hits, I can see something really quickly that isn't here, right? To make it here. Are there any things that you use, like looking at it in your life, that help you to, kind of build that faith in a practical sense? It could be community. I know you mentioned that, one of you mentioned that before, but is there anything that you could leave with somebody to say, hey, if you're struggling in the area of faith, this might help you here to expect the unexpected and walk on water?
I love it. Dar?
I mean, it always goes back to community for me, because like this house that I'm sitting in right now is the byproduct of the words that Pastor Travis spoke over me and my wife. Like we were in an apartment and didn't have any money or didn't have the faith or even the wherewithal to think anything bigger than what we currently had. And we got pulled into an office one day and Pastor Travis was like, "Yeah, I see a house for you guys." And I was just like, "A house, bro? I'm sorry, talking about?" And it's because of being in that community of faith, it's fostered even more faith for me and my wife. And so now we're believing for a baby and stuff like that. And so just because being around that community of faith and people who not just, in church, like we read the Bible and we say all these big stories, but sometimes we forget that the God that did all these things in the Bible is actually still the God of today,
Yes,
like he's not still that God that, he just parted the Red Sea and delivered Israel and everything like that. But he doesn't do that stuff now. But to be in a church and to be in a community of people who are not just believing things, we're not just saying things, but believing and living out faith is life-changing.
Great.
So definitely.
And I could say I feel it just from a Zoom, okay?
And move to South Carolina.
Listen, I'm from North Carolina. I lived in the west side of Chicago for a while, okay? So when you said Chicago, almost like what's that? But no, I like seriously, I'm so grateful for the work that you all have done personally to be in a space where I can hop on a Zoom and feel like, woo, it got real thick in my house. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm making shirts over here. I got all kind of crap and stuff on the floor. And I'm like,
Yes.
I seriously haven't felt this in so long. And there are times where you can feel alone in certain spaces, you know, and strange by the way you read things and do things, and just tired with stale church. Like, this isn't it.
Yeah.
So, you know, as you know, within the first couple of minutes of being here, you know, on a Zoom, I am grateful for the work that each of you all have done in the private places, so that in this space, right, I can be encouraged. And I know anyone listening, I just believe that there is an area where someone has been struggling with faith, that at the end of this, the 15 minutes or whatever, they're going to say, God, I trust you. I'm walking on water. I know that even if I start sinking, it doesn't matter because you'll grab my hand. And if I'm going to go, I might as well go after I've walked on water anyway. And so I am really, really grateful. Is there anything that any of you want to say before we go to our listeners?
Yeah, so I just want to say one thing about the faith thing. And I know we have another interview, but I want to say 4 words. I think it's 4 words. It's not about you. It's not about you. Those are 4 words. If you remember that, you'll walk on water. You'll do what God's telling you to do. You'll take the risk. You'll expect the impossible. As long as the enemy can convince you it's about you, then you think that it's on you to complete. You know, and the result can't be on you if, you know, if it's not about you. And so if it's about God, if it's for God, God handles God's business. God be God. And so Jesus is going to be Jesus. Just kind of decrease so he can increase. It ain't about you. Ain't about you. You don't have the right to stress. That's not about you.
Yes, the how is none of your business, okay?
None of your beeswax.
Thank you so much. I hope you have the energy to keep going the rest of the day.
We will. We will. You're amazing. Hey.
It's the ride with your girl, Ro. It's the ride with your girl, Ro. It's the ride with your girl, Ro. And you're listening to Worship 94.5.